Welcome to the third episode of Beyond the Frets. I'm super excited to be back with another fantastic episode this week featuring the amazing Cecil Alexander. If you're not hip to him, you really need to check him out. He is a guitarist, composer, and arranger from Muskegon, Michigan originally, but he went to Berklee College of Music and graduated with the BM in Jazz Composition. Then he spent time at William Patterson University out in New Jersey, where he got his master's. He was also a semifinalist in the 2019 Herbie Hancock International Jazz Guitar Competition, which was previously the Monk competition, as many of us know and remember that competition being kind of the highest echelon of players usually end up winning and being involved in that. If you look at the semifinalists and finalists for the past, I guess, almost 30 years now, you will pretty much recognize all the names in the top three in each instrument per year. So that being said, I had a pleasure talking to Cecil. He's a really down-to-earth and humble guy and really has such a unique approach to the instrument and the music and writing. And I really think that he's on the cutting edge of what jazz guitar is today in 2021. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. We talked a lot about his background, his upbringing, how he kind of made his way through school, and what he's done outside of it. We also discuss just how he exactly approaches finding his own sound and pursuing the type of musical aesthetical choices that he has really kind of taken the reins up with. So before we get into it, I just want to give a big thanks to everyone for listening to the podcast. It's been, again, an absolute pleasure putting on this project. If you want to support the podcast, just please head to beyondthefrets.com. Share the podcast with your friends, family, and people that you may think will dig what we talk about on here. And of course, like, subscribe, rate, review, do whatever you can to spread the love of what's happening on Beyond the Frets. Of course, this would not be made possible without the support from the Mid-American Center of Contemporary Music, based in Bowling Green State University. I want to thank them for their support. And lastly, you can find us on Instagram at Beyond the Frets. So if you want to learn the secrets of the musical multiverse, sit down, grab an axe, and get abducted. This is Beyond the Frets. Yo!
Hey, what's going on, man?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going great. It's going, as well as it can be.
Yeah.
All things considered. I finished my first semester of grad school last week.
Congrats, man.
Oh, thank you. Just enjoying a little break.
Yeah.
There's never a break, but, a break from that.
Right. You're at Bowling Green, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. How do you like it so far?
I love it, man. I really love it. I took a 5-year break in between undergrad and now, and I was kind of always afraid to go to school just for various reasons because I was working so much, which was awesome. I was like, I don't know if I can, get away from that. But I kind of just took the plunge, and then COVID happened. So I was like, well, this is honestly a good time.
Right.
It's definitely breathed life into just everything. Cause I'm sure, when you're not in school like that, it's so great not to be in school, and there's just different things that you can benefit from that, but you don't always have that, I guess, pressure or that accountability. At least like for 5 years, I was just kind of shedding on my own. Like no one really told me what to do unless I was like messing up on a gig. It wasn't like, hey, you should like check out the harmonic major scale. I had to figure that out on my own. So now I'm lucky to have a teacher again that's like, yeah, you should check out this, or like fix your technique, or blah blah blah. So
yeah, definitely.
Long story short, I love it.
It can be great to have that structure for sure.
Yeah, I needed it, man. I wasn't slacking, but I definitely knew that I wanted that that experience again to kind of just put me in a different place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I actually moved away from the like New York, New Jersey area where I'd been for like the last last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Just since COVID and everything, with like the live music scene not really being anything like what it used to be, it didn't really make sense to stick around there and not have that kind of income coming in every month.
Yeah.
So I've been just like staying with family down in Mississippi,
Oh,
actually,
wow.
and just like teaching a lot. I picked up like two part-time college teaching positions like since pandemic, which has been a huge relief. But just trying to stay busy.
Yeah, well, I was just on I was looking at your profile and I saw the two adjunct or the whatever it says. That's fantastic. Congrats.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
How has that process been? I mean, obviously it's weird online, but how is it teaching in a collegiate setting?
It's been pretty cool. I mean, like once lockdown hit, I was just like applying for jobs like crazy, and I was like, oh, what do I do? And I applied for like probably like 10 college positions that I just saw when I Googled like
Wow.
jazz guitar instructors, university or college or something like that.
Yeah.
And then come the fall, I started hearing back from some of them. So I started first at this school called Borough of Manhattan Community College,
Okay.
which is in the city. And that's been really cool. I don't have a lot of students through them, but I got like my first like group teaching experience, even though it's like, just on Zoom, but it's been
Yeah.
cool. It's like a guitar class, a lot of different skill levels. Like I have some people who are, kind of familiar with some improvisation stuff, and other people who like, don't really know how to tune their guitar or like don't know open position
Neat.
chords. So, so it's been like an interesting to just find something that works for all those different skill levels and like something that everyone is receptive to and interested in. And the UCLA one has been really chill. I just have like two students through them, like super eager kids, open to like learn everything, anything. It's cool.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great that you were able to get this position. Obviously, they're very lucky to have you, but probably I guess it probably works out because it's online. Like you didn't have to move to LA.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's the biggest thing for sure.
I definitely wonder. I have so many questions, first of all, but on this train of thought, I definitely wonder what the future of collegiate education will be for the better in some ways because, you know, we didn't have a lot of opportunities at school this semester as we would normally, but we did have Zoom master classes with like 8 different people, like all amazing musicians. So it's just the proliferation of being able to just meet and like have Dave Douglas Zoom in 1 week, or like Ryan Keberle 1 week, or Cheryl Bailey, like whoever. Just those opportunities, I think schools are really going to take advantage of, and also not even just in a master class setting, but as adjunct faculty or whatever faculty, you can really kind of spread the pool of people teaching like all over the world.
Totally. Yeah. I actually interviewed for this another position a couple weeks back, and I was just like asking the chair of the department during the interview, like what changes have you made since the pandemic, and like how do you feel that the program is going to, move forward from this? And he was like, there's a lot of things that we've been doing since pandemic that are like virtual, and I feel like we're probably going to keep it that way because it's just been we've been able to be a lot more flexible, and like it just
Yeah.
makes more sense like logistically and money wise. So I thought that was interesting. Just like you said, it's a lot of things are probably going to stay the same at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a benefit to the school to have it make me like the best teachers are usually in many cases like gigging all the time or touring, and sometimes they don't want to take a position because they don't want to leave that lifestyle. But if they kind of have the option to kind of flex in and out, I think that's quite beneficial for everyone.
Totally. Totally.
I just want to know your background a little bit because I couldn't find much. I just want to get the record straight, man.
Yeah, for
Make
sure.
sure you're not from Mars or something crazy because that's what I've been thinking this whole time. So where are you from?
I'm from Western Michigan, actually, a
Okay.
small town called Muskegon. Like probably the closest big town is Grand Rapids, which isn't even really that big.
Yeah.
But yeah, born in Muskegon, Michigan. I was always like interested in music growing up. I took like piano lessons and drum lessons and all this stuff. And then I saw, that scene in Back to the Future where like Marty McFly is just like ripping on the, yeah, exactly.
I'm huge back to the. I love Michael J. Fox. I was just listening to a podcast with him yesterday. Love that scene.
Yeah. Yeah. That just like flipped my whole world around. I was like, I have to do that. Like, that's what I need right now.
Yeah.
That Christmas, like I asked for, the only thing I asked for was like a red guitar. I didn't care like I didn't know what the brand name was or anything.
Right.
I was like, I need something red because that's going to do it for me. And I got the guitar that Christmas and started lessons like in the new year and just like hated it. Like I thought it was terrible. I just didn't like to practice. I didn't like what my teacher was giving me to practice, just like all of these, like some of the Mel Bay books that are just like very reading centric. And I just wasn't into it. I just wanted to like rip the blues scale like it. So I kind of stopped for, like that was when I was 8. I stopped when I was 10, I think, and picked it back up when I was 12. Because I saw like a video of Van Halen on VH1 and, same reaction pretty much to that scene in Back to the Future where I was just like, I have to do that. And luckily I already had a guitar that was also red. So
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, so that worked out. And then I just kind of started teaching myself like through like YouTube videos, like trying to watch people's fingers and see like what frets they were on. Watching a lot of Hendrix stuff and learning a lot of Hendrix songs, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Albert King, BB King. Like that was my, bread and butter, like in middle school and early high school, I think. And then I didn't really get serious into jazz until I was like maybe a junior in high school or maybe like a little bit before then. But I had always listened to it because my parents would play it around the house.
Okay.
And I did the Berkeley like 5-week summer program, and that let me know that that's what I wanted to do was just like study jazz seriously and really find out what was going on the recordings.
What back then, what was your conception of jazz? I mean, who were you listening to? What made you excited about that type of music?
A lot of Benson. George Benson was just like that just turned my whole world around. I just couldn't believe like anyone could play that fast and like musical, and it just seemed like everything he thought of he could just like play instantly.
Yeah.
I was checking out a lot of him, a lot of Metheny. Huge Pat Metheny fan. Schofield, Holdsworth, even though I had like no idea what was going on. I still don't, but and let me see. Also, like Grant Green, Kenny Burrell, Wes Montgomery, obviously. When I heard like those three, that did a lot for me in terms of like seeing how you could like bridge the gap from the more blues centric playing that I was into like more swing stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you were kind of playing in high school. You maybe realized you wanted to do it for a living or some sort of career.
Yeah, I was playing in like my high school's jazz band, and not really having a great time because we were just playing like, ironically, we were playing Johnny B. Good and like
Wow.
like arrangements of like average white band tunes and stuff like, which I is super cool, but I just like wanted to swing, and no one was like checking out recordings or anything like that. Everybody was just kind of like
Yeah.
It was almost like their parents forced them into jazz band, and I was like, "You're not excited about this?" And yeah, it wasn't until I went to like 5 week that I got experience playing with like, like-minded teenagers who like wanted to play tunes and stuff like that. And then once I got back from 5 week, I like talked my parents into letting me be homeschooled for my senior year.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
I could like shed a lot because I knew I wanted to go to music school, and I was like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be on my instrument, so I have to like practice a ton for the audition so I can like, afford to go there
Yeah,
basically.
right.
Um, and that year, my senior year, when I was homeschooled, I was doing like guitar lessons and a jazz band at the local community college. And
Okay.
there we were actually like playing tunes and arrangements, and like the teacher was super into like, theory and getting us to learn all these scales and stuff. So that was like a really good prep for like going to, a music school program
Mhm.
for sure.
Then you ended up going to Berkeley, right?
I did. Yeah, I went to Berkeley for my undergrad back in 2012,
Okay.
and I studied jazz composition. Just because I was like initially going into Berkeley, I wasn't a great like reader or anything, and I didn't like know a ton of theory. Like my ears were okay, but I didn't like know the whole academic like solfege system and ear training and all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of wanted to like dive headfirst into all that stuff. So I was like, why not study composition? So that was really great for just like learning arranging techniques, getting my ears to like understand what is familiar in composition and jazz and things like that. But strangely enough, like I wasn't really playing a lot of jazz at Berkeley. I was like writing jazz projects, but I was mostly playing in like R&B bands and funk bands and just like my friends' original projects and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was one of my questions because I know I saw that you went there for composition, and I thought that was, I thought I just that's cool.
Yeah, it definitely helped a lot. Because, like I said, I just like didn't know what a 2-5-1 was. I didn't know the like circle of fourths or fifths or anything like that. So that
Yeah.
definitely it was an added it was the right kind of pressure that I needed for that time to be like really honing in on that stuff.
Right. I mean, was your thought throughout that degree like you want to perform? Did you want to teach? Did you want to write? Kind of all of the above.
Yeah, I think all of the above. Like I actually started at Berkeley as performance major, and then I tacked on composition, and then I dropped performance because it was just like way too much work. And I was like about to pull my hair out every finals week.
Right.
So yeah, I just kind of wanted to do a lot. Towards the end of my time at Berkeley, I became more like playing focused, I think, and kind of regretting dropping that performance major because I kind of like started to not enjoy my composition homework as much as I did initially.
Yeah.
So I was just like, that was really when I started like transcribing a lot. Was like my last 2 years of school,
Okay.
and just like getting into vocabulary and playing over like more complex tunes than I had before and things like that.
Who were some of your like mentors and teachers while you were at school?
So I had the first teacher I had was this guy, Kurt Shoemate, who was actually my teacher for the 5 week program. And
Okay.
he was the guy that like introduced me to Wes and Grant Green and Kenny Burrell and all those people. So when I started Berkeley, I had one semester with him. That was great. And then I kind of just wanted to jump around a lot. So I took with David Gilmore my second semester, who was just an absolute beast. He didn't show up to many of our lessons, but I definitely learned a lot. And then I think, yeah, my second year, I I had both this guy David Tronzo, who's like a really big Boston like avant-garde guy. He plays
Okay.
like the craziest stuff you've ever heard on slide. Like he plays like bebop melodies on slide and like all this weird intervallic stuff.
Wow.
He was probably like my favorite teacher that I had at Berkeley. Him and this other guy who I was taking from at the same time named Thaddeus Hogarth, who's a big like fusion guy, funk fusion and stuff like that. So those two were really good for that point because it was like they were encouraging me to be like creative, you know, like every semester we had to do like a transcription for proficiencies and stuff like that. But it was really just like the last couple of weeks they would say like, oh, you have to get a solo together. You know?
Yeah, right.
The rest of the semester was just kind of like, let's play some tunes, like let's write some lines, which I just thought was like exactly what I needed at the time, you know. And those were like the two last performance teachers that I had because we only had like if you weren't a performance major at Berkeley, you only had like 2 years of lessons or something like that.
Gotcha.
So my last 2 years, I was doing like directed studies, composition lessons with this great pianist and composer, Shami Royston. She's amazing piano player, amazing composer, and that was really good just because she was also kind of similar to their approach. She was like encouraging me to be really creative and just like didn't really say, you know, that's not right because it doesn't follow this rule or anything like that.
Right.
You know? Which I've always found is like that's what I really look for in a teacher is just like encouraging you to, you know, explore your voice and, you know, not so much like academic rules and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I think it's hard to find that balance of a teacher that there's like a mutual trust, and they can let you pursue the things that you want to pursue and the type of voice or things that you're into, but also be able to rein you in and say like, no, you really need to work on, you know, your triads or whatever. It's that perfect mix is pretty hard to find.
Yeah, definitely. There's, you know, a lot of teachers that just kind of like, regardless of what your outlook is coming in, they already have like this list of things that they want you to do. And that's just, I don't know,
Yep.
just stifles you, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's the type of teacher that's like, to me, there's like two types. Well, not just two types, but there's the type where you come in and they're just going to show you their thing. Like, I am whoever, this is what I do. Here's how I do it. Here you go. Mm-hmm. And that's cool because some people really want that, especially if it's like a bigger name, whatever. It's like, I want to learn so-and-so's thing.
Yeah.
I got it. But to me, I love the teachers that are like, how can I help you? Like, what can we do together? How can we both learn and, you know, be creative and build the foundation, all that stuff.
Absolutely. And that's been something that I've tried to do in my, like in my teaching at the schools and stuff is just like, you know, figure out where the student is at, like what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and just like where they want to go from the point that they're at, you know, and how can I help them, like you said.
Absolutely. I'm the same way. I think we're very much informed, like when we become educators, like throughout our career as guitarists, if that's the way a person goes, we're very much informed by who we were taught by. So if you didn't have a great teacher or, you know, didn't have certain things in place, it can be very difficult to become a teacher. When did you start teaching yourself? Not yourself, but teaching other people.
I did a little bit in high school, just like friends of mine that, you know, were wondering like what do I do to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan? And I would just like, you know, show them a bunch of licks and stuff, you know, just like not really like professional teaching experience, but it got me to understand how to like communicate ideas to people, which is really helpful. I don't think I really started like just full on teaching until I graduated from Berkeley. And my wife and I moved to Arizona just to
Oh,
like
wow.
stay with her family and kind of save up money because we knew we wanted to move back to the East Coast eventually.
Gotcha.
Um, so I was just like teaching at a couple music studios there, mostly like 5 and 6 year olds, and I was teaching like piano and guitar and drums and like all the stuff that I probably shouldn't have been teaching. But that was really good because I knew I wanted to go into a master's program eventually. Like that was kind of the goal in mind. Like with moving back to the East Coast, like I was going to start school again. And that just let me know that like I was never ever going to like waste a teacher's time ever again. Because I had like all these like teenagers coming in and I would give them these songs and they seemed like really enthusiastic about it, and then like weeks would go by and they wouldn't have done any of it, and I was just like, oh, this feels terrible. Like I understand.
Right. Exactly. You have to experience it.
Yeah, totally.
So that took you to your master's. Where'd you go for there?
I went to William Patterson,
Okay,
which is a
right.
school in New Jersey, pretty close to the city.
Yeah.
And I was with Gene Bertoncini, who was just
Man.
amazing guitar player, amazing person. I was with him for my whole time there.
Wow.
He's another one of my favorite teachers I've ever had, and like just one of my favorite people I've ever met, probably.
Yeah, he's the best. I've met him like once or twice, and he's always. I'm sure you know all the jokes, all the brutal jokes. So good. But he, like my first day of my undergrad, my teacher who went to Berkeley in the '70s, like one of the books we had to get was approach, or what is it? Approaching the guitar. I can't remember. The Dean Bertoncini's book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's called Approaching the Guitar, whatever it is, but it's so great. It's like it's laid out so well, and like it's just so logical, and there's just so much. I go back to it all the time.
Yeah,
He's fantastic.
he's just like a magician of the guitar. Like he would always surprise me, like from week to week. Like he would always assign me these like arrangements of tunes, like just whatever tune came to his mind. He would say like arrange I don't know, My Shining Hour for solo guitar for next week.
Yeah.
And then we would just like I would play through the solo arrangement, then we would play the tune together, and he would just play all the most wild stuff I've ever heard anyone play on a tune, just like playing super melodic stuff, and then just like this crazy octave displacement line with like all of these like, contrapuntal ideas. I was just like, man, what are you doing? How do you do that? But yeah, he's just amazing teacher. And again, another one of those that was like, didn't come in with his agenda. It was like, let me see where you're at, and I'm going to, help you get to the point that you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I wondered, had you done much solo guitar stuff before that?
Not really. To be honest, I feel like I was mostly just like very single line focused, and I still feel that way, but it wasn't really something that I had ever even really thought about until I started lessons with him, like working out arrangements of tunes.
Yeah.
I thought that, you shed your scales enough, and like, someone asks you to play a solo guitar gig, and then it all just comes out,
Oh man, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. But yeah, he really, put me to work with that kind of stuff. Just like it started as just like an arrangement a week. And then it became like, 2 arrangements a week, 3 arrangements a week. And then it got to the point where I was just like, Gene, like, this is way too much.
Wow.
Like, but it definitely helped just like getting to understand how I wanted to approach that part of guitar playing, and like, what kinds of people to listen to, what to listen for. Most importantly,
It's a whole nother beast. And
It's equally rewarding and very frustrating. I mean, that's basically all elements of music, right? But especially solo guitar.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to talk about this because I was rewatching your Herbie the competition video and your arrangement of I Remember You.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Could you maybe just talk a little bit about that? Like it's so fantastic, by the way. I love all just the modulations and the cool harmonies and all that stuff. It's so great. Was that is that something you had worked out in school? Were you in school at that time?
I had graduated at that point.
Okay.
The competition was in last year, 2019. I finished my master's in May of 2019. So that wasn't something that I had worked on in my lessons or anything like that. To be honest, like after I finished my master's, I also wasn't really like focusing on solo guitar anymore.
Yeah.
But then like I found out I was a semifinalist in the competition, and I was like, oh, I should do a solo guitar arrangement. And ironically enough, Gene told me that he was going to come to the competition. Like he took the bus
Oh
all the
man.
way from Jersey to DC to like see this. And I was like, oh, I better make sure that this arrangement is
Yup.
like it doesn't right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what my thought process was for that. Something that Gene expressed to me was just like you have to, prioritize the melody, but you can frame that melody in so many different ways.
Yep.
He gave me this sheet like the first week that had all of these concepts that you can use on a tune, and it was like, chordal voicings, triadic voicings, two lines moving at once, three lines moving at once, melody in one key, harmony in another key, or something like that. Just like really mind expanding stuff that I had never really thought of. So I kind of just tried to work all of that in. Like I would say I did like 2 or 3 drafts of like the melody just arranged,
Yeah.
and I just kind of wanted to improvise from there. So the kind of the process for that was just like working out a lot of like lines, like just singing lines, trying to play harmony underneath them, writing out arrangements of like, this is the kind of solo that I'd like to be able to do unaccompanied.
Yeah.
And eventually it just kind of worked out. Like it trained my ear to, hear a melodic idea and then know how to like drop a bass note under that or drop like some kind of harmonic idea under that, and just like listen for just ways of like keeping things full, because I feel like that's the hardest thing is like, you improvise solo guitar and it's like, oh, I have to play a chord. You're like playing all these single note lines. It's like, oh, chord. So I just kind of wanted it to be more, just a little more fluid than that, and like playing a line and maybe like in the middle of a line have like a dyad like pop out, or like a triad voicing or something like that just pop out to keep things kind of keep the forward motion going, and like not just make it sound like there's just one guitar player playing on stage by himself.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing was just trying to work in all of those ideas and make it sound organic, I guess. Like, the modulations, like you mentioned, was just kind of something that I heard. Like I knew I wanted to take advantage of open strings in the arrangement, and I knew that I wanted to just like keep things moving forward and not have the audience be like, oh, he's been playing for a while, like
Yeah.
be done,
Yep.
But yeah, it's something that I feel like I still have to work on a lot, because it's ironically, you would think with the lockdown and like not being able to play with people regularly, I would be focusing on solo guitar a lot, but I haven't really like shedded it seriously in couple months, I would say. I haven't really done like many arrangements or anything like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, I was just curious because, well, because when I first heard that video, I don't even know if I ever seen a video of you playing solo guitar. I was like, man, he's been hiding this from us. What is going on? I was like, all right, he can really do it all.
Thank
This
you.
is it. He's from Mars. That's it. um, I mean, it sounds like to me, and honestly, I kind of guessed this even before talking to you that you would. I'm not trying to put thoughts in your head, but it seems to me that you have an idea of what of a sound or something you want to hear, and you just find pragmatic ways to practice it and try to achieve that sound. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's been the biggest thing for me like the last couple of years is, everyone has their own way of getting to the sound that they want. Everybody's chasing this sound, but sometimes you can't even like express like how it is that you want to sound or like what kinds of musical things it is that you'd like to be able to do. So I think that's like the most important first step is just figuring out like what you like, like
Yeah.
listening to players and identifying like I like the way that this player uses like they self-accompany themselves when they're playing in a trio. I like the way that this player uses open strings, like just all of those like super specific things. I think kind of mold into a broader sound or like a broader spectrum, and I think that like I said, everybody has their own way of getting to that sound, and not what I found is like what works for you isn't going to work for everybody else, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest thing recently is just like I knew that I wanted to maybe outline changes a little clearer. So I found out like all of these ways just from transcribing and thinking like maybe this is what that person was thinking. That's kind of gotten me to that sound specifically. So yeah, I think that's been a huge thing for me, to be honest.
How do you think about the transcription process? I mean, do you tend to do whole solos, just snippets? How do you use that as a tool?
So lately, I've been doing just like small snippets recently. I'd say like from maybe March to October, I'd been doing like mostly full solos. Maybe like a little bit into November, I would just like do maybe like a solo every week or like a solo every 2 weeks or week and a half or something like that. And I think the biggest thing for me was singing solos. That just like has, opened up so many new things for me. I had this teacher during my first semester of my master's, Aaron Goldberg. He's pretty big, yeah, big New York guy, unbelievable piano player, like probably one of my favorite pianists alive, I'd say. And he was like the hardest teacher I've ever had. Like it was an ear training class. It was called like advanced jazz ear training or something like that. And he would do stuff as wild as this. Like he would give us a reference pitch. He would say, this is C. And then he would play like some like Coltrane derived like chord progression, just like, moving through like four different keys and all this crazy stuff. And we'd have to notate all of it, like the exact voicings and everything. Ooh. Yeah. And our final was like, it was strange because it was the midterm that he gave us was that kind of stuff, like crazy notation. And then the final, he said, like, just transcribe a solo, but you have to sing it. And you also will have to sing it without the recording, which I had like, never even thought about doing that before. So I just picked something simple. It was like a Fats Navarro solo on, I think it was the Ladybird solo. Great solo. And he had me first sing it with the recording. Then I played it along with the recording, and then he had the class sing the bass notes. So we were like in this big auditorium, and the class sang the bass notes, and I sang the solo over that. And it was really hard, man. I was like,
Yeah.
to like really shed this. So what I've been doing, even with like small snippets or full solos, I sing the whole solo with the recording. I make sure I can sing it without the recording as well. And then what I try to do from there, another thing that he expressed to us was important, is trying to figure out the phrases from your singing, like not using the recording as a reference, but just having these melodies like so
interesting,
strongly ingrained in your ear that you can identify every exact pitch on your instrument. And that's been really good for avoiding that like insert lick here approach, which I think can be like really beneficial for expanding your ears. But what I found has happened from singing solos and singing phrases, and even trying to do that like over backing tracks, just like scatting solos, is it comes out a lot more naturally. Like it's not like you have to go through this process of like, oh, here's a 2/5, I'm going to insert this lick, or like that copy and paste kind of thing. So that's been really just tremendously helpful, I think, for just making improvisation feel more natural as a practice rather than like mechanical. Because I feel like when I was at Berkeley, especially, I had a piano friend player or a piano player friend of mine tell me, like, I just asked her, how do you practice? And she told me she just like learns licks from recordings and like, plugs them in. Like she'll learn licks from someone's recording on Donnelly, and then she'll use those licks over Donnelly. And I just never even thought of that. I was like, I didn't even know you could do that. Like, that's not cheating?
Allowed?
Yeah. And what I found happening, like I said, I think that can be really great. Like if you really drill in those licks to the point where it becomes like second nature. Yeah. What I found happening was I would just like do like information overload. And it was like one day I would be like, okay, I'm going to learn like 30 licks. And I would just like browse through all these different recordings, like put in timestamps, like I like this lick, I like this lick. And then I would just, turn on a backing track and try to plug all that stuff in. Yeah. And like none of it was connected to my ears. Like it was all just like shapes. And I may have had like an ear reaction initially and been like, wow, that's hip. But that's kind of where it stopped, Yeah. And that I feel like really, it did open up some things, like maybe the licks that were a little easier to hear in context. But yeah, I feel like that was kind of like time wasted for me, just like plugging in, hundreds of licks a week. Because like I said, I wasn't connecting any of it to my ears, and I wasn't like learning how to improvise. I was just learning how to like regurgitate like things that I had heard, so it wasn't until like Goldberg, imparted that wisdom to us that I was like, wow, that's the next step, because I also had him for ensemble that semester, and he was, even harder on us in that class. Like he said, you guys are playing all this crap that you can't hear, like all these like Chris Potter licks that you think are hip, but you can't sing any of it. And I was like, he's right.
That is brutal. I mean, that's what we want though, right?
Yeah, totally.
The voice is so important. That's something I have similarly learned. Like now, like if I'm transcribing something, I'll just listen to it and try to sing it, like you said. And it's like the process of me putting it on the guitar is so much faster when I can if I just know it by singing it.
Absolutely.
There's that element that's, I don't need to worry about like the rhythms or just the whole vibe of it. I kind of know it's just a matter of putting it on the guitar.
Right.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Kind of like, like the Russian Olympics, some decades ago where the government told them to think about winning or something.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a little different because you are doing the act of it, but it's really that intention. It's that intention of like, I'm going to connect with this player by, physically singing it.
Mhm.
And I think that, yeah, that physical act is going to connect you a lot more, because you could also just write it down, maybe, or figure it out without singing it. But I think that singing element really gets into it, because I was just thinking, or I've thought a lot with transcriptions, like you could write down a Peter Bernstein solo. You could write down the rhythms and whatever. You can give it to someone, but if someone that was the best sight reader in the world like played along with it, it would not sound anything alike, because you can't notate. All right, he's laying back right here, or he's pushing ahead right here. He's doing this thing, that thing.
Right.
There's just no way you can capture that without just doing it. And by feeling it and singing it, that's where it's at.
Exactly. Do you know this piano player, George Colligan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and I was not in the jazz scene, but I know that, I think is he still out there?
I think he's at Portland State.
Portland State. Yeah. He's gone.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. I was reading this interview he did with Ethan Iverson on Ethan Iverson's, I think it's Do the Math is the website.
Blog. Yeah.
He just has all these great interviews on there, and he did one with Colligan. And George was saying, like, he had a friend who was a classical piano major at Peabody in Maryland, right? I think. Yeah. And he said this guy was just like an unbelievable reader, and he had a gig coming up where the people requested that he play like jazz piano. So he asked George, he was like, do you have any like transcription books that I could read from? And he gave him this Bill Evans piano transcription book, and he was like blazed through everything. Like he wrote it almost, but the feel was terrible. Like there were no swing, like, he just played everything straight, but like all the note choices were perfect. But he's saying that that's such a big part of transcription, is getting to understand how to swing, like understanding phrasing, and like even on guitar, like things like timbre and touch can be so important,
Yeah. To me lately, I feel like transcribing to me is more like trying to find the minutia of it. Like it's less about the notes even. It's more just like, how can I like feel exactly like what Peter Bernstein's eighth note lines versus how does Bobby Broom, how does that feel for me, and how can I connect to that swing feel or whatever it is, or what string are they playing this on? I can't really tell. I was doing like I was playing some Robin Ford the other day, just like so killing. I was just trying to figure out exactly, and like just the minutia, because this sounds stupid, but like I've not really been into like blues type stuff for a really long time, and I've been wanting to get back into it because it's something I'm missing, and I'm like, man, I really want to sound like Robin Ford. So I was like, all right, I'm sure it's just like some pentatonic stuff, and it is, but the minutia of what he's doing with it was just like blowing my mind. I was like, this is so deep because of just these little tiny things.
Totally. Yeah, that's something that always blows me away with blues players, and like you mentioned Bernstein in particular, like the way that guy plays the guitar is like, just unbelievable attention to tone and touch and timbre, and like, he knows when he plays this specific note on this string, like he's going to play it with this intention. And, he could just like sustain like one note for like 4 bars, and he'd be like, damn, that was hip.
I know. It's insane.
He's just so mature in his approach, and I feel like him, especially Bobby Broom as well, I feel like they have such attention to tone on the guitar, which is something that I feel like is so easy to lose sight of, for sure.
Absolutely. And tone as it relates to the fingers and just the instrument, not gear at all. Because that's the thing that's so crazy. Like I'll tell my students I have 15 different ways of playing one note just by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just by moving your hand, you have a world of possibility. And that's not even dynamics or any of, whatever. We're so lucky with guitar that we can do so much with it. So, anyways, as far as transcribing, that's just what I love trying to find. Like, how do they manipulate, one note in different
Yeah.
ways?
Mm-hmm.
This year's been crazy.
Sure has.
How has any of this informed, like your goals or what you're working on or music and life in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's made me more conscious of time management for sure. Because now that we have, more time, I'm like, well, I have to, you know, just make sure I'm doing the right things every day and like spending the right amount of time on everything. So it's not like in the beginning of quarantine, it was like every day was just like getting away from me. Like I would wake up at like, 2 p.m. or something like that and just like watch TV all day, like maybe practice for like 30 minutes or something like that. But very quickly I was like, okay, I have to, make some changes and like kind of plan out every day, just so that I'm using my time wisely. So like I think that that's one thing that I'm, thankful of with this lockdown is like, I feel like I just know like what I want to spend time on and how much time I want to spend on those things. Maybe I'll wake up at 10, like work out, practice, have some coffee, then maybe chill for like a couple minutes and then maybe like work on some new tunes or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's also, I feel like it's made me, just like more conscious of what direction I want to go in as a musician. Like, I feel like the last couple of years, actually like leading up until the Hancock competition, I feel like I was kind of like hazy in like how I wanted to sound and like what kind of impact I want to make and like how I want my music to make people feel. I feel like was not really a big concern of mine. And then like since pandemic and especially in June with George Floyd, that just like really made me think like, I can't just be a guy that like plays hip licks. Like I have to like make my music make people feel a certain way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and to you, what is that feeling? Do you feel like you have like not pressure, but do you feel like you have some sort of I guess what's driving you? What kind of feeling are you trying to impart?
I think I just want to. I feel like it's something that I'm still figuring out, but the biggest realization that I've had is that I just want to like play the world the way it is, rather than the world that I want it to be, if that makes sense. I think that's a big thing that I've realized recently is I just want to be honest, like here's what's happening. I don't want to just make it all like sunshine and rainbows because it's not,
Nope, it is not.
Yeah.
I think people respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
I hope. I mean, obviously we live in, this technological world where things are so vain and so, swipe, like, blah, blah, blah. Give me the next media or, entertainment fix. But
Right.
I do think a lot of people respect honesty and transparency, especially when they see so many things that are just so fake or on the surface. It's hard to get a read on who people are nowadays. And that kind of ties into social media because it's so easy just to portray whatever you want. You could whatever aspect of your life that you want to present to the public, you can do because you have total control.
Yeah.
But doing that musically, I feel like you can't get away with if you really want to be an artist. It has to be all of you, which is going to have flaws and mistakes and hurt and pain and love. All that stuff. It's all part of you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of something that I realized, like brought me to the musicians or something that I realized, made me keep coming back to certain musicians, like I'll never get tired of listening to Train, for example. Like no period of Train will ever get like boring to me, just because I think he's like one of the most honest jazz musicians that there ever was, like he played like pain and hurt and like, sorrow and segregation, discrimination, like all these different things could come through just in like, him playing one note on his horn, or like Miles Davis as well, Charles Mingus, people like that. Like I just keep coming back to, and that wasn't something that I realized until recently, but I was like, why do some musicians I can only like listen to once every blue moon, but other musicians like I could just listen to all day, every day,
Yeah.
I feel like that's what it is for sure, is just that honesty in their expression.
Absolutely. I think it's important to keep, always keep track of those artists that you just are milestones for you, just always going back to. And I think also, it's not for you necessarily, but it's sometimes, especially in like the school setting, you're so focused on like listening to jazz or like doing your thing because you want to get good at it. But, it's easy to forget that, like, don't ever cast aside like, oh, I really like Pink Floyd, or I really like the Allman Brothers, like whoever it is. I like Dua Lipa. Like, it's lean into that stuff because again, just as your experiences in life and emotions will affect your music, so will all the things you're into. I think it's just so important to just digest everything.
Yeah, totally. And like not shy away from it for sure. Like I feel like when I was in school, especially in my undergrad, it was like, if you played a blues lick at a session, like that was corny. Like you need to get out. Like, we don't do that here. It was almost like, intellectual things were just like prioritized over like making people feel a certain way. Like I said,
Exactly.
And that, I feel like that's kind of an advantage of having like parents that aren't musicians. Cause like my mom would tell me like, you didn't sound so good the other day, just cause I was just trying to play all my hip licks over this tune.
Yeah. I mean, it's that balance. It's like, obviously, you want to further your craft and your art, and that involves some intellectual process and like real deep, considerations into that whole thing. But there is that human element. If you are trying to play for people, you want to connect with them in a certain way. Obviously, you don't want to pander to them or, just deliver them something that you think they're going to like. But again, it's that honesty. And if you're able to play your emotions through that lens of whatever your vibe is, your aesthetic, then they'll dig it. That's why, like, my favorite players, like, I can tell what their personality is like without ever meeting them because, like Julian Lage is funny.
Yeah.
His playing is hilarious. I'm smiling the whole time. I'm like, this is funny as hell, or Bill Evans is very contemplative, or like whatever it is. There's like that element that you can attach to. And also the amazing thing is, like, since we all have these different emotions, someone might think, I might think Julian Lage is funny, but you might think that he's sad or something, because that also exists in his music, and that's something you can relate to.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind for sure when listening. It's just like, how does this make me feel? Like, is this person being honest with me in what they're doing?
Yep. So I've been listening to a lot of Grant Green lately, which I have not really done. For some reason, I don't know. Sometimes you ever just like, a player's really killing, but it's just like, I'm not ready for this yet. For whatever reason, Grant Green was the guy. I was like, I'm not ready. I know it's great. I don't know what to do. And then someone told me to listen to Solid, that record. And I was like, all right, cool. And I've just been listening to nonstop. I'm like, man, he's like playing so great. Like, his amp is distorting half the time. It sounds goofy sometimes, but it's just so good. It just makes me feel good. I will
Yeah,
listen to 100 choruses of him on whatever tune it is.
exactly.
And it's
Yeah,
great.
he was a big guy for me for sure when I was like starting out with like where to go with jazz. Like that teacher I mentioned, Kurt Shoemate, like showed
Mhm.
me. It was in It Ain't Necessarily So, you know, that Gershwin recording that they do on that record with like Blakey and Sonny Clark, and
Yep.
it's just like, you know, 10 or 12 minutes of just like swinging their butts off.
Yeah.
And that was exactly what I needed to hear at that time, and that like still resonates with me. You know, like I
Yeah.
listen to that recording like a couple times a week, and I probably have since like 2015, I
Wow.
think. But yeah, he's one of those players that I just like keep coming back to, because like you said, even though it's not, you know, even though he's not a technical wizard or anything like that, it's just
Mhm.
like, you know, everything that. Oop, Siri thought I was talking to her. Sorry.
Speaking of technical wizard, geez. Yikes.
But yeah, I just keep coming back to him because it's just so honest. You know, it's like pet licks and all that kind of stuff, but it always comes out at the right time. You know, like I was listening to this Hank Mobley record, Workout, I think, or maybe it's called Another Workout.
Mhm.
And it's got Grant Green, Philly Joe, Paul Chambers, and I think Wynton Kelly on it. Just like super
Gotta
killing
check that out.
lineup.
I don't know that.
But there's this one like minor tune that they play, and Grant Green plays like the same lick like 20 times in his solo. But every time you're just like, yeah,
I
that's what it
know.
is.
Crazy. I remember in my undergrad, my teacher was like, Grant Green's amazing. He plays the same four licks, and
Yeah,
you're gonna love it.
yeah, exactly.
He's right.
And another thing I love about him is, you know, the tone. Like, even though it's not, I wouldn't say that it's the same attention to detail that like Bernstein or Bobby Broom has, but it's
Mhm.
just like so like human sounding, you know,
Yeah.
like you mentioned the amp, like when he digs in a little bit more, it like breaks up.
Yeah.
And, oh, it's just perfect to listen to right now, you know?
Yeah, I know. He has that, it's so just opposite of what people call jazz guitar in like 2020 as far as the tone. It's like the polar opposite. But I love that. I love that bite. I love that grit. It's very revealing.
Mhm.
There's nothing forgiving about his tone.
Yeah, definitely.
You hear what he's playing. You hear what he's playing. There's no delay or the tone roll all the way down or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can really hear the body of the guitar as well, I feel like.
Yep. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I guess my last little question. Well, it's not little. What is your advice to students that want to bridge the gap between just maybe knowing some scales and some licks and to actually getting into language? Because I think this is one of like the hardest barriers it was for me as a jazz guitarist and certainly still is, but also as a teacher, I have found it's always difficult, or there's no standard way to like get someone moving past chord scales or the theory of it into actually getting into language and like hearing things. I just wonder what your conception of that is.
Sure. So that, you know, like you said, that's one of the biggest things, and I feel like it's such a mystery. Not only because so many different people have their own approach to it, but I think also just because it's something that is hard to articulate for sure, you know. But I think what worked for me was just like thinking small, you know, like I was, like you said, learning licks and all that stuff is great. But what I ran into was like, especially when I started my master's, like all these people wanted to play like, you know, Joe Henderson tunes and Cedar Walton tunes. And I was
Yeah.
like, why can't we play There Will Never Be Another You? Like, I have all the licks for that one. I'm ready.
Yeah, come on, man.
But you know, like tunes where the harmony is a little, it moves a little quicker, or like voice leading is something that you might not be used to with like Great American Songbook tunes.
Yep.
I was just like, I have to figure out like a way of getting through these that is not just like playing the same lick every time I see a minor seventh chord.
Right.
So I started thinking of like, what is vocabulary? And I kind of boiled it down to like, when you hear language on a recording, it's just like some way of decorating like a scale, an arpeggio, a triad, like something that you would think is just like super basic, but like you could, turn the notes around a little bit to make it more musical, So I just started taking things like I work a lot with bebop scales. That was a really big thing for just uncovering some language and like getting my ears to hear in a certain way. So what I do is I kind of use that as like a foundation, and then I build things on top of that. So can I maybe give you like a little playing example or something?
Please, of course, man. Yeah.
So I'll take something like, like a B flat dominant seventh. The B flat dominant bebop scale would like correspond with that. So
Yeah.
So then I'll add like little pieces of language. Like I said, think small. So I'll take something as small as like just that little approach. So like a major second within the scale. And then I'll figure out all the ways of doing that within that tonality.
Yeah.
I might do something like starting with the scale and then going.
Sure.
And then adding all this other stuff on top of it so that you can take that little piece of language and then put it in the middle of a phrase, put it at the beginning of the phrase, and just be like versatile with it. And another thing that I found with, thinking small like that is it's a lot easier to connect to your ear than thinking like, okay, I have a B flat 7 coming up. Like I'm going to play my B flat 7 lick. Something like that. You're taking apart, the way I like to do it is taking apart bigger lines and just making them all of these like little small tricks, basically,
Right.
Like another one could be, so we had the major second thing. Another one could be like, all of these different little approaches and things like that. That's been really great for building a versatile language for me, like things that you can take into a lot of different musical contexts and just not worry about like, oh, this block is too big to fit in this area, that kind of thing.
Right.
Which you really run into a lot with prioritizing licks too much is what I found,
Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy to just play the guitar. Someone could play their whole life and not know anything, which is like the funny thing about guitar, but it's that connection. Like, okay, I'm going to add one little chromatic note between the 5 and the 6, and that's going to be my little piece of language that I can insert or whatever. I think that's such a fantastic idea because again, there is that mystery of it because there's so many, as many players as there are that many ways of thinking about it. But you have to be able to give someone something clear. So it's like, here's this little gesture, this little cell, this little thing that we can name, we can analyze it. It has like, we can figure it out. And here's the ways to, insert it in different ways. That's fantastic, man. And I watched, I've seen your YouTube lessons and, heard you're playing a lot, and that all makes total sense. I love that. It's very, very clear, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Yeah.
So I really appreciate you doing this, man. It was great to talk to you.
Of course. Yeah, great talking to you, man.
Yeah. Did you have anything you want to plug or any recordings, anything?
Sure. So I have a band with my wife. It's called Visen, Visen. On Instagram is Visen Band. And we're releasing a EP probably this spring, I believe. And it's like more of a like indie folk kind of vibe, like a lot of acoustic guitars and slide and stuff like that.
Nice.
And we've just been working on that like all year basically. So now it's like finally in the mixing and mastering stages. And I also have an original album of mine coming out probably in the summer, I would imagine. We're recording, I think, in February, something like that. It's going to be like an organ trio for a couple of tracks. It's like some Bobby Womack tunes and Stevie Wonder stuff, some originals, and also like a quartet vibe with like piano, guitar, bass, and drums. A lot of original tunes, a lot of groove, swing, just that kind of thing.
Awesome, man. Cannot wait to hear both of those projects.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again. And let's keep in touch.
Definitely, man. Definitely. It was great to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, buddy. Take care. Have a great holiday.
You too, man. Take care.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Cecil Alexander, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. It was really just easy to talk to him. He's a super chill guy, especially for how ridiculous he is at the guitar. Obviously, you heard where you can find Cecil and hear what he's up to. But again, to reiterate, he can be found at cecilalexander.com and Cecil Alexander Music on Instagram, I think. But again, it's just very easy to find. And he's got a lot of great educational materials out there as well. We didn't talk too much about that, but if you're kind of interested in his sound or his concept, he has a lot of options for you to dig in and dive headfirst into the maelstrom of modern jazz guitar. So without further ado, thank you so much for listening. Please share the podcast. Find us at beyondthefrets.com. You can email us at beyondthefretspodcast@gmail.com. You can send your hate mail directly to me, because when I say us, it is mostly just me and also my great pal Chase Potter, who's doing all the great editing and mixing for you, so it sounds way better than I could ever make it. Shout out to him. But enough of my blabbering. The next episode, episode 4, will feature the amazing Corey Christensen, one of my favorite people on the earth, honestly. I cannot wait to share the conversation we had. He is just... Well, you'll hear for yourself, because you're, of course, going to listen to that episode. So until that one drops, I hope you have a wonderful life. Okay, that was awkward. Bye.